Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the WordPress Sydney April Meetup. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you are joining us, drop some comments in the comment underneath Facebook and YouTube, and let us know who you are and where you're tuning in from. My name is Will Brown. I'm one of the WordPress Sydney Meetup organizers, so welcome tonight. We have Peter Schilling. He's going to be talking on image optimization for WordPress speed in this talk tonight, so that's going to be a great talk. If you are on, let me just make this full screen. If you're on YouTube, remember to click the subscribe button and the little bell notification just to get our latest videos when they pop up, so you get notified. Today, we've got a little bit of an agenda. We try and stick to an agenda just to make sure that you guys know what we're doing, what's coming up. So we try to start on time at 6 p.m. and we end round about 7:30. So we don't run for too long. Do a little bit of a welcome, then we do some news and updates, the main presentation, and then do some Q&A afterwards as well. So if you are asking questions, we'll ask if you can use the comments below Facebook, below YouTube. Start with hashtag ask, just so when we're scrolling up and down, we can see those questions. That'll be fantastic. The social media share tonight is hashtag WPSID, and you can read our code of conduct is the one that's on the wpaustralia.org website, and that's on there, code-conduct. I'll post that in the meetup group there. So we have some people join us already. We've got Morris. Hi, Will and Peter from Sydney. Hi, Morris. Thanks for spending your time. Chris. Hi, Chris. How you doing? Long time no speak,
Hey,
Chris. Good to have you on board. Yuko is in from Sydney. We've got David as well, tuning in from Malaysia. Oh, thank you very much, David. Tuning in from Malaysia. That was me. That was me as well. And we've got Steph. Steph Tech Surfer. Surf that tech, Steph. Okay, I just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors. Now, we've not been meeting online for over a year now, which is very sad, but it doesn't mean that our sponsors have gone away. So I just want to say thank you to our sponsors. So Kinetics, I'm going to paste some of their links down there below, and I'll make all these links available after the meetup as well. So thanks to Kinetics, thanks to WP Engine, to Plesk, and to the WordPress Foundation as well, and to Microsoft as well. Microsoft are a physical event people, but obviously we can't get back into the building just now. So I have had some people ask me when physical meetups are starting again. That's a great question. And basically it revolves around three things. So the first thing is kind of local government or national policy. So what policies govern Australia? So at the moment, we're pretty okay for those. So gatherings are pretty good. So that's a tick for that one. The second part of it is really up to these kind of organizations that we're branded under. So for example, the WordPress Sydney Meetup that's branded under the WordPress Community Services. And they're basically saying at the moment, kind of stick to online streaming. It's a little bit different here in Australia than it is in the US, COVID-wise, but in general, they're basically saying just stick to online streaming at the moment. So that's their kind of official stance. And third of all is venues. So we're with Microsoft Reactor in Sydney, and their current policy is they're not having any public meetings at the moment. So it's basically a no at the moment for physical meetings. But if that does change, then we'll let you guys know. And it'll be good to get back to physical meetups as soon as we can. So we'll drop a line on meetup.com and let everyone know if that changes anytime soon. Okay, we've done that one. Next, if you are interested in becoming an organizer, drop me a note on that link. I've just dropped that into the comments down below. We are looking for a couple of people just to help organize the WordPress Sydney meetup. It's not a lot of time, maybe 2 or 3 hours per month, just to help out with social posting, with comment moderation, curation of comments and questions and things like that. When we do move to in-person meetups, it's maybe about 5 or 6 hours, a little bit more effort. But at the moment, we're still in online mode. So if you're interested in stepping up as an organizer, 2 to 3 hours a month, you don't need to go online. You don't need to speak or give talks or anything like that. There's plenty of stuff that we can do behind the scenes that would really help us out. And we just ask you commit to at least 6 months, just so we can queue up some some talks, just to know we've got some people standing behind us. And the same is for WooCommerce. I've been contacted by the WooCommerce team, the community liaison for WooCommerce, and they're interested in booting up the WooCommerce Sydney meetup group as well. So if you're interested in becoming an organizer for them, then again, just drop me a note, and you can use that same form, or just send me a LinkedIn connection request, or just drop it in the meetup.com. So if you're interested in being a volunteer, WP said, or WooCommerce, let me know. It'd be great to have extra people just helping out in the background. We're going to have a few people join us. So Mr. Meowpoos, I love that name, from Sydney. We've got Liz as well, from Sydney as well. Thanks, guys, for taking your time to join us this evening. Okay, let's do a little bit of news. Okay, so some WordPress news for April. Update to WordPress. So we've got WordPress 5.7.1. So if you have upgraded to 5.7, which came out a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, something like that, you really should update to 0.1, because it includes all these new fixes. So all the bugs and issues that were came with 5.7, they've been fixed, as well as a couple of security flaws to the WordPress core itself. So make sure if you're running 5.7, you update to 5.7.1 from that. Hi, Jay and A Baron from Sydney too. We've got a lot of Sydney siders join us, which is good today. In the news as well, and this is a good one, or a bizarre one. So Wix and WordPress CEOs, they've been a bit of a punch each other, virtual punches over the last few weeks. If you don't understand, or you don't know kind of the history behind this, in 2016, Matt Mullenweg, who's the CEO of Automatic, the people behind the WordPress core app, he accused Wix, or the Wix CEO, or the company, of stealing and using some WordPress open source code in their mobile app, which they did remove after a few banters backwards and forwards. But that kind of opened up a rift between WordPress and Wix, and it's never really healed. And in the past few weeks, Wix have been starting to do some bizarre stuff. First of all, they sent some headphones, with the WordPress logo branded in, and they sent them out to WordPress people with a little note to say, enjoy using WordPress. And it was so bizarre. And then they started doing these videos. And his videos are just really, really weird. And they've really got the kind of the WordPress community, not so much anger, but just really confused, because they're really, really bizarre. I'm going to show you one just now. I'm going to try and show you one just now, just to give you an idea as to how strange they are. So bear with me. I'm just going to remove my screen and reshare that. So let's see if I can find this tab. Share screen, Chrome tab. Is it going to be there? Here we go. And then I put this onto the stream. I'm going to give that full screen, and I hope you can hear this audio. Let me know if you can hear, but just watch this. Can you hear that?
They were both absent.
I've got it.
WordPress, would you care to join us? Logan was just sharing his feelings.
No offense, Doc, but what are we even doing here? I mean, can't you get a tutorial to fix your problems or something? Oh, geez, I just updated it like a second ago.
Is he like that all the time?
No. Sometimes when I press the update button, I know it's going to crash or get messed up, and I'm going to end up working on that. And you know, I smile talking about it. But the truth is, it's terrifying knowing that at any moment, everything I worked for could just... I mean, I love WordPress. I just wish it could be more reliable.
Like Wix.
Hey, look at you, man. You're a mess. What happened?
How bizarre is
Has
that?
someone been watching the I'm an Apple and I'm a PC ads from a few years back?
That is so bizarre. That is so bizarre. It's the little nice little calming tune at the end, do 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 do, with Wix. You know, it just kind of sets it all off. But yeah, there's 3 or 4 different adverts in this series. Yeah, Chris, they're absolutely cringeworthy. Absolutely cringeworthy. I completely agree with you. I think, I don't know what they're meant to do. Are they meant to intimidate WordPress? I don't really understand. I think it just makes them look sad. It makes Wix look a little bit sad. But yeah, I'm having a laugh. I've watched them all. I think they're quite fun. And, you know, whatever Wix is, whatever they're trying to do, a little bit of competition, I think, is always a good thing anyway, even if it's a poke in the eye. You know, it's good fun. The last bit of news is full site editing. So blockifying everything. Matt Mullenweg is on a vision to blockify the entire WordPress core, I think. So full site editing, which is being able to edit things like your navigation, your menu structures, your footers, your widgets, even the media manager, I believe, is what they're calling full site editing. So not so much from editing your website from the front end. So that's not what they're talking about, but being able to go into the WordPress dashboard and drag blocks around everywhere. So there was talk about that maybe being put into WordPress 5.8, but it looks like it might be pulled out a little bit and just kind of left for a little bit longer for that. So probably not full site editing 5.8, but you know, I could be wrong. It's meant to be launched in July the 20th, 5.8, but we'll just see what happens. I don't think it's quite ready yet, so we'll just keep an eye on that and let you know a little bit closer to the time. Let's see. Steph says he tried Wix once and wasn't a fan due to their user interface. Yep. Was it all made of blocks, I wonder? Okay, let's go. So the main topic for tonight is image optimization, looking at WordPress speed, and that's by Peter Schilling from the DMA. And I'm going to hand over to Peter. I'm going to let him introduce himself and his subject. And if you've got any questions, again, drop them in the comments below with the hashtag ask. And I'll fire them up on screen, or we'll try and do some Q&A afterwards when Peter's finished. Okay, over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me. Okay, so my name's Peter. I'm one of the partners at the DMA. So we're a Sydney-based WordPress agency, and we build websites, WordPress websites, not Wix ones. Interestingly, that's a good Will. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is just some simple ways to optimize a WordPress site to make it load faster. And specifically, what I want to talk about tonight is around images. So there's lots of things as a WordPress kind of developer or someone who's managing WordPress that we try and do to make it run as quickly as possible. We're just going to hone in on the image side of things this evening. But just before we start that, just to cover off why you want to do that. So it's certainly really important from a usability perspective. So if people are visiting your website, to be able to have that load as quickly as possible, and particularly now with more and more people coming in to your sites on mobile phone and tablets where the internet isn't necessarily Wi-Fi, then it's certainly the faster you can make it happen for that user, the better it's going to be for them. So they're going to stay on the website longer instead of waiting to have large images load. And certainly I think I know we deal with it a lot as a WordPress agency. We're very focused on optimizing for speed because of SEO. And I think that's a pretty widely known thing that, to have your SEO improve, you've got to have your site loading really, really quickly. So Google's been on this bandwagon now for a number of years where they're certainly giving preferential treatment to sites that are loading swiftly so that, from their perspective, they want to be able to let someone do a search, click on a link from a search page and get a result, looking at a website and have that website load as quickly as it possible can. So there's certainly, there's plenty of reason for you to want to have your sites loading up nice and quickly. So I'm going to try and, this is going to be really, approachable stuff. It's not getting into code or any kind of, wizardry. It's really just a couple of plugins that I want to talk about tonight and things that we use all the time to sort of make some sites go faster. So can you, you've got my screen share there. That's all working as it will. Yes. Okay. So the first up is looking at image compression. So I'm going to do a little demonstration here and show you what this is all about. So this is particularly important. So, I guess people are using a whole different variety of tools to get their images ready for their website these days. It's not everyone's using Photoshop. So tools like Canva. So if you've seen canva.com, are really popular where you're using pre-done templates to be able to organize images and things like that. And quite often, those images are not necessarily optimized for the web. They're optimized, to be downloaded and do various things with them. So one of the first things I want to talk about, even before we get into that compression stuff, is to make sure that you're using the right image format. So there's a simple rule of thumb, and look, there's more complexities around this, but a simple rule of thumb is that anything that's photographic, so any kind of image that's got a picture of a person or some scenery or something like that, should be a JPG or a JPEG image. And the other side of that is that anything that is, an icon or a logo or a line drawing should be a PNG file. And I draw that to certainly new user attention, because often, particularly with things like Canva, the default format to download a file in is actually PNG in a lot of cases. So people will put something together really nicely in Canva. They'll download it as a PNG file and then upload that on their website. And what the result of that is that you've got a file that is maybe 2 or 3 megabytes, instead of something that's a lot more manageable for a file size. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Make sure that you're using the right format. So going on there, so I'm going to get a little demonstration and show you a pixel that, this is just one system. There's a few different image compressors that are around, but we use a thing called ShortPixel. So I'm just going to flip over here and show you what this is all about. So I've got a demo WordPress site here. So in the WordPress dashboard, you can come down here to library, and it will show you all the images that you've got in your website so far. And clicking on, so coming into some of these, if you click on edit, what you'll see is that the tool shows you how big these are. So there's 2 sizes that we're interested in. One is the dimensions, so that's how many pixels wide and high it is. And the second one is how big it is, so 180 kilobytes rather, in this particular example. And that's what we're interested in. So we're not saying, certainly not saying that you can't have a big image. So having a 1700 pixel image is not a bad thing in itself. What we're trying to get to optimize here is the actual file size. So just to put this into some perspective, so when someone visits your web page and there might be some text on the page, there might be a number of images, and if this image here is one of the image that you need to display on your web page, it means that 180 kilobytes has to be transferred across the internet connection before that can be rendered on your web page. So quite commonly you have situations where you might have half a dozen images. You might have more than that. So if they're all around 200 kilobytes each, you'll easily get up to a megabyte of just images without trying really hard at all. So what we're trying to do here with image compression is try and make the images as small a file size as we possibly can. So some of the samples in here, so this one's even bigger, so it's 262 in file size. So what I want to show you is a little tool called ShortPixel. So I've got it installed here. And I'm just going to activate it so it shows you so you can see what happens. So this is ShortPixel Image Optimizer. So you'll find that it's a free plugin that's on the WordPress repository. I'll talk about, because there is a free level, and then if you use lots and lots of images, then you have to start paying a little bit for the access to the API. But I'll come to that in a moment. So what happens is when you activate the plugin, you'll find that coming back to your media library, it has some changes for it. So we've still got the images here and what it's been attached to, but we've got an extra pieces of data here. So ShortPixel compression is a column in this optimized now. So what we're able to do here is to run each of our images through this ShortPixel optimizer, and it will give us back a resulting image. So if we look at, let's look at this trekking one. So just to remember this, so if we click edit here, so it's 262 KB. So let's run this trekking one through the optimizer. So it takes a couple of seconds. So what's actually happening here is that this is going off to the ShortPixel image optimizer API. So it's basically handing the image over. It's doing some magic in the background, so it's compressing it. and it's going to then transfer that back to us and give that to us so that we can use it inside WordPress. So you can see here that then once it's done, it says it's reduced it by 43.88%. Now, so that sounds quite good. Okay, so it's taken it down to almost half. So the way that we can see what's happening here is we've got a little hamburger menu over here. So if we click on this, there's a great little tool here called Compare, and what this does is it loads up the original image, and then you can slide this across. All I'm doing is moving my mouse across the screen, and it shows me the ShortPixel compressed image. So I don't know how much we're losing on the live stream and stuff, but certainly for me sitting in front of it, I'm struggling to find a difference between that. A little bit of color perhaps in some sections. So this is really nice in that you can compress an image. You can then come along here and you can say, okay, well, that's the original. So that was my 260 KB file. And then I can move my mouse across the screen here and I can see the compressed image. So it's visually exactly the same. The difference, of course, is that it is 43% smaller. So if I click on edit now and go back to seeing that, I can see that my image is down to 184. So it's still the same pixel dimensions. It's not doing anything there. It's still 1700 pixels wide and 1134 high, but it's a lot smaller from a file size. So everything that I was talking about in the kind of introduction, you know, all that idea of images having to be transferred across an internet connection, it's going to be a lot faster now because those images are smaller. Now, it's certainly, you know, any of these kind of compressors, they're not perfect. You don't get it's not a kind of tool that you can use willy-nilly and never see it make mistakes. Certainly where I see it fall down sometimes is images where you've got pictures of maybe a person's face and then something really different colored behind them. So it might be a really dark background or a really light background. And sometimes when you do that kind of image, you'll find that it does a kind of a poorer job, and that's worth knowing that you can repair this. So I've got so this image of San Francisco here, not necessarily that it's done a bad job, but I'll show you. I'll show you some options. So this is one I did this afternoon, just when I was setting this up. So there's the original, and there's the ShortPixel image, and again, it's pretty hard to tell the difference. Just some of those clouds, you can see a little bit of difference between them. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that when you looked at this and you compared the ShortPixel version of it, that you weren't happy with it, there's a couple of things you can do. So clicking down here, you can, first of all, if you want to go back to the original image, you can just click Restore Backup. And so what ShortPixel is doing is it's keeping the original file. So it's not kind of trampling through your media library and throwing stuff away. It's putting it to one side. The original is putting it to one side. So it actually stores it into a directory. So if you want to, you can click Restore Backup and it will put that image back in place. So now if we scroll down to see San Francisco, you can see that it's ready to be optimized. So it's basically given back to the original image, and you could go ahead and leave it like that, or you could use to re-optimize it. So if I show you this one that I just did, there's a couple of other options here. So the default is to re-optimize as lossless, which will do slightly less compression. So what lossless will do is it'll instead of it being 43% compressed, it'll be not as good as that. So it'll be a kind of lower percentage, but it will sometimes, in that situation where you've got an image that's kind of a little bit pixelated, it'll make it just enough to be able to be presentable without being the full size again. So what's happening here is it's basically putting that original image back up to the ShortPixel API and getting it to optimize it again. So you can see when you choose to have a lossless image, that it's only losing 4.3% instead of the kind of larger percentage that we had in the first instance. So there you go. So it's nice from that perspective, in that you're not losing the images. If you want to go back, you can jump around here. I can go back to lossy. So the default option is what's called lossy. So that's what it's referring to there, is it will lose some of the pixels in between to make it smaller. But if it's, the idea is if it's not visually noticeable, then it's a good thing to do. So the long and short of it is that. So basically you activate the plugin. I will take you through the settings in a moment, just quickly, but the tool basically adds itself to the WordPress media library and allows you to go through the images. You can do it one at a time like this. So you could sit here and you could say, okay, well, I want to optimize that one. And you could click, you can click a couple and it'll do a couple at once. You can also choose to use this. If you see over here, there's an option that says bulk ShortPixel. And what we're able to do here is we can just get it to run through the entire library and it will do everything. So quite often that's what we'll do, is we'll do the bulk ShortPixel and we'll get it to go through the entire library. And then we might sort of come through here and inspect individual images to just check them and compare them. So that's what you would do with that. So if we jump into the settings, so what the plugin does is it adds a ShortPixel menu down here, and really the default settings are pretty much spot on. So we generally don't change any of this stuff. What we do change in the advanced options here, I generally turn this off. So it'll optimize PDF documents as well, but quite often if you've got a PDF there that might be a brochure or something like that, you may not want that to be, particularly if it's something that is not going to be displayed on the page so much. It's, you're putting a link there for a user to be able to click and download a PDF. So generally I would say, okay, turn that off so that the PDFs don't get optimized, and so they might be 2 and 3 meg, but it's not going to affect your page load speed from the main web page. So that's a good thing to do. The other thing, if you do use Cloudflare, so quite a lot of people use that, there's options here to put in an API token for Cloudflare so that it'll work with the Cloudflare CDN. We're going to talk more about CDNs in a little while as well. So yeah, so look, really the default settings for that are pretty darn good. Now, if you have a look at the ShortPixel website, I'll just bring this up in a new tab. Pixel.com. There's a free level of this where you can get a free account, and I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's just go into pricing here. So what's that? But so what it does, I think it gives you like yeah, so actually here, so 100 optimized images per month. So quite often that's enough for people. If you're only adding a small number of images to your website every month, you can sign up for a free account here, and it'll allow you to optimize 100 images every month. So it just ticks over and it gives you another 100 credits each month. Of course, if you're doing more, you can, it's not huge amounts of money for 3 or 4. These prices are US dollars, but for $4 US, you can do a whole 5,000 images and whatnot. But a lot of people will be happy with this kind of thing of just signing up for a free account, and that will get you started. So yeah, so ShortPixel.com is the website for those guys. The plugin, you'll find that in the WordPress repository. So if you go like you normally would do, plugins and add new, if you do a search for ShortPixel, all one word, you'll find that. Let's just do that quickly. And there it is there. So I've already got it activated at the moment, but ShortPixel Image Optimizer. Okay, so that's the first one that I wanted to cover off, which is optimizing or compressing images. So Will, did you have any questions? Did you want to take some questions at each of these stages, or should we keep going and get through to the end? Or have you left me, Will? Okay, we might keep going and we'll perhaps take some questions at the end. Okay, so next thing I wanted to cover off is using a CDN. I haven't presented at WordPress Sydney for a little while, but if you've ever come to one of my in-person presentations, you'll know that I love a good hand-drawn picture. So what I've got here is a little illustration. So if you're not familiar with what CDN is, what I want to try and do here is to get across the idea. So in this scenario, what I've got is a website that might be hosted in Sydney. So that's down here, this box down the bottom right. And here's a visitor from North America that's accessing your web page. And so what I'm trying to get across here is that there's a couple of different streams of information that are being downloaded. So when someone accesses just a single page of content, they've got to download a HTML file. So WordPress generates a HTML file and presents that to the web browser. But then there's also CSS. And then there are multiple, potentially, images. So if you've got half a dozen or a dozen images on a page, then each of those things, and there's other things like, JavaScripts and whatnot, but so you can get the idea is that each of those things have to download from the server in Sydney to the person's web browser, which is, in this case, coming in from North America. So what a CDN does is it attempts to speed that up by delivering content closer to where the end user is coming from. So if we look at this situation, what happens here is we've got a visitor from North America. The HTML is still being loaded from the web server in Sydney. But if we could be in a situation where the images were being loaded from a server in North America, so somewhere geographically close to this visitor, and the CSS was being loaded from a server close to that user, the net result is that the web page is going to come up on screen a lot faster for that particular visitor. And so this is just one example, but the beauty about CDNs is that a lot of the bigger companies that run CDNs have points of presence. So what we call them POPs, have servers or POPs in just vast amounts of cities. So that might be in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane and Perth, all the way through North America. A lot of the CDN providers would have servers on the West Coast and servers on the East Coast and stuff in the middle, all the way through Europe. So some of the CDN providers might have 20, 30, sometimes 40 or more different points of presence. So it means that instead of hosting your website off one single machine, might be located in Sydney, for example, then your website is actually being served from the closest point to wherever the visitors are coming from. So that sounds fancy, sounds like it could be complicated, but it's actually the easiest thing. So years ago it was complicated, but right now in WordPress it's 3 or 4 mouse clicks and you're away. So the one that I'm going to show you tonight is a free plugin called Jetpack. You might have come across this already. It's made by Automatic, which is the same people that run WordPress.com, and it's like a really good solution. Their network is really, really fast, and as I said, it's free to use. So I'll jump back over here to my demo website. Once again, down to install plugins. I've got it installed, so I just need to activate it. So the plugin is called, you can see it here, Jetpack by WordPress.com. So I can just activate it, but if you haven't got it installed, you would go through this normal process of clicking Add New, and you would search for it, and you'd be able to find it. So if I activate Jetpack, it will come up like this, and it'll take you through a process of setting up Jetpack. So again, there's paid options here. We can do without all that. We can go through and get access to this without having to part with any cash. If it actually loads, here we go. Okay, so we've logged into my account. So what I've done here is I did this afternoon. So I actually just connected this. So normally you would need a WordPress.com account. So if you haven't got one of those, you can just simply go to WordPress.com and sign up for a free account. And so all I've done there is connect it to our account, and then it will come back and it will show you all the options for you to spend lots of money, but you don't need to. So like in a lot of these, all the options to spend money are large and highlighted. And if you keep on scrolling, you can have Jetpack for free. So it does all manner of things. So it does, backups and all different types of things. And if you're interested in some of those, you certainly can have a look at them. But what we're interested in tonight is really just getting access to their CDN network, so their content delivery network, which is this guy. So if I click Start for free, I get that connected, and Jetpack will give me some recommendations. So I generally don't use it, but let's go through this. So this is it's asking for, well, in fact, I'm not going to show that because I'm not really sure what it's doing. So what we want to do is just go straight across to settings. And there's one simple setting that we can turn on, and it's this one under performance. So if I go to performance, you'll see there's an option here for performance and speed. So I want to just show to you what's happening here. So before I turn this on, if I just open up, so this is the website that we're looking at, right? So this is just a dummy site. So if I look at this and look at these images here, so look at this image here, for example. If I right click on that and click on inspect, what I want to show to you is that it's loading. So this website is just wpsydney.wpengine.com, right? So the image is loading from, I don't know if you can see, but I'll read it out for you. It's exactly the same URL, right? So it's wpsydney.wpengine.com / blah, blah, blah. So what it's doing there is the first situation that I showed you in my very artistic line drawing. It's loading the HTML file for this page from the server in Sydney, and it's loading all the images. So all of these images that you see here, and this one here that I just inspected, it's loading all of those from the server in Sydney. So simply by coming in here and going enable site accelerator, so the two options, so I'll explain the difference between those in a moment. Speed up image load times and speed up static files. Just do that and come across here, and all I'm going to do is just refresh this. I'm going to load that same page again. Now, if I right click again and inspect that same image, what we're going to see is that image is now loading from i0.wp.com. So wp.com is the WordPress.com CDN network. So in the short time that I sat there explaining it, what's happened is my WordPress install has started to push all the images up to the WordPress.com global network. And so pretty soon, like now, if someone is accessing this web page from North America, they're not going to be downloading that image from the server in Sydney. They're going to be getting it from, maybe somewhere in California or somewhere in, New York or Boston or something if they're on the East Coast. And likewise, all the way through New Zealand and Europe and Asia and whatnot. So the nice thing about this, or the interesting thing about this, is that it always says, it'll say I0 and I1.wp.com. That'll flip around sometimes. So it doesn't actually tell you that it's where it is, so where it's geographically located. But there's some magical DNS happening there that basically will load for you the point at present that's closest to you. So that's pretty cool. Now, again, I don't know what's how this shows on a live stream, but the web page is loading pretty quickly. Okay, so as I click around these and the images and whatnot, and this is just a demo, of course, but each and every page is loading up really nice and quickly. And part of that is due to the fact that I'm now loading all of these images off the CDN network. Now, so we've focused on images tonight, but I'll just cover this off for you quickly. So the other thing that it says here is speed up static file load times. The other interesting thing that's happening here is that as well as images, it's actually doing the same thing to my CSS files. So if I come along here, it's not doing it to that, it's doing it to actually, I think my theme might be playing up with this. But what'll happen normally is that you'll find that your style sheets, so your style.css is going to actually be loading from the CDN network as well. Mine is not doing it, which is a bit interesting. Will, are you going to help me with why my CSS is not? No, I can see you've popped back up on the video. Oh, do I have to unmute you? How do I do that? you should have shown me that before you.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think you've not checked the little toggle in Jetpack.
Oh, did I miss one? Oh, that one there.
There you go.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let's try that again. Still isn't doing it. That's what live demonstrations are all about. Things not working. That's definitely got it. Let me just reload that one more time. Still not doing it. Okay, I won't labor on that. Generally what happens is that the CSS would also be picked up and loaded from the same CDN. I might loop that and see what's going on there. But that's basically all there is to it. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on under the bonnet there. So what's happening on page load is that Jetpack is rewriting the URL. So in your local WordPress install, it would be pointing it to, so in my case, wpsydney.wpengine.com. It's rewriting that on the fly to be i0.wp.com and magically pushing all of your images up to the CDN. So so that's the second part of what I wanted to cover off tonight, which is just how to get a CDN going. Now, Jetpack is just one. Sometimes you're hosting, so more and more WordPress hosting these days would come with a CDN. So it's certainly worth looking at as to whether your hosting provider provides a CDN, so you wouldn't even need to install Jetpack. So more and more that's becoming an option, even just inside your normal WordPress hosting. Did you want to add something, Will? I see you pop up.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. There's some questions for the ShortPixel too, but we'll do those at the end. But there's a couple of questions for this one. So Morris is asking, is Jetpack better than Cloudflare?
I think so. I wouldn't say that one of them was better than the other. Jetpack is generally the reason why I would cover Jetpack in a situation like this is because it's just dead easy. So it doesn't cost you any money. Cloudflare, there's a free level for as well. Cloudflare can be just as easy. The difficulty with Cloudflare is that you've got to run your DNS. So you actually have to delegate your domain name to their name servers. So it just approaches it slightly differently. So certainly we use Cloudflare, and it's a very good service. Sometimes though, if people want to keep their DNS, so where the domain's delegated to, they want to keep that running on, it might be a corporate network or some other reason why they want to keep the DNS somewhere, then Cloudflare becomes harder. It's not impossible to do, but it becomes harder to work with. But certainly the advantage of Cloudflare, just to cover off a couple of things, is they do, so on their free tier, so you can get access to that for no money as well. You can, with a bit of know-how, get it to do full page caching. So if I showed you back to my my diagram here, so even in this situation where I had a CDN active, you can see that the HTML file is still being loaded from the origin server, so still from my hosting environment in Sydney. So one of the things that Cloudflare can do, even on the free tier, there's a bit of messing with it, but you can make it so that it will actually load the HTML off the CDN as well. So in effect, you're getting your entire website loaded from what we call the edge servers or the CDN network. So images, CSS, JavaScript, HTML, the whole thing. Now, that can be fine if your website is pretty static, in that you're not like in an e-commerce situation where people are putting stuff in their cart and wanting to see that the cart's updated with a price and things like that. If your website's pretty static, you can go nuts with full page caching, and it loads the site really, really quickly. So that there is differences, and there's more. There's probably, just to get back to the question, there's probably more you can do with Cloudflare, but at a simple bang for buck, install Jetpack, enable that option I showed you. It couldn't be easier to give your website a kick in the pants as far as hosting speed goes, just from running a CDN through that. Cool.
Another couple of questions. Joey J is asking about the quality of Jetpack CDN.
I was listening to, so I've heard some negative things in the past about it as well. I was listening to, I can't remember what was the podcast, but Matt Mullenweg was talking to, it might have been Matt, what's the other guy who does Matt Report? You might be helping me out, Will, with his name. Do you know the guy I'm talking about? So there's another podcast called the Matt Report. And he was talking to Matt Mullenweg. And I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but he was pulling out some statistics, I think, where he was saying he was proud of the WordPress.com network and what the work they'd been doing to expand the points of presence. So that the CDN network that you get access to with Jetpack is, I believe, the same underlying infrastructure that runs WordPress.com. And there are, who knows, pick a number, tens of thousands, millions, perhaps, websites running on WordPress.com. So it's a massive piece of infrastructure. I know people have a problem with it because it's what's called a non-destructive cache. So once you put an image into the WordPress CDN, you can never change it. So you'd have to upload a new image to be able to and then reference a new image. So there's kind of little idiosyncrasies about it, but I've not had a problem with it. We run some smaller sites on the WordPress.com CDN, so the Jetpack CDN, and it doesn't miss a beat. We've not had a problem with it at all.
As far as I'm aware, it runs, as you say, Pierre, on the WordPress VIP network, and that's the part of the network that runs all the big enterprise companies that run on the WordPress.com. So yeah, you're getting all the goody stuff. So last question, and then we'll move on to the next one. Janie Barnes asking about hosting and Jetpack.
What in particular will work with any hosting? Yes, I think that's the question.
Yep.
Yes. So short answer, yes. So the only caveat to that is that I would ask your hosting company whether they have a CDN solution, because as I said, more and more, certainly anything that is a WordPress hosting situation, like WP Engine, which is one of the sponsors of WP Sydney, but a bunch of other WordPress providers as well, generally will provide a CDN as well. So kind of it's the done thing now. But certainly, if you're hosting with Net Registry or one of the kind of more ordinary hosting companies, then you wouldn't get a CDN with that. But it's certainly worth checking to see whether your hosting provider does give a CDN. But other than that, short answer is yes, it should work with pretty much any hosting. Because what's happening is it's basically it's just rewriting things and saying, instead of grabbing this image from xyz.com, which is my hosting or my website, go and grab that image from the Jetpack CDN network instead. So short answer, yes. It wasn't a short answer. That was actually a long answer. Another question. So if you're on Cloudflare, you don't need Jetpack. And if you're on Cloudflare, you can use Jetpack still. No, you wouldn't use Cloudflare and Jetpack. So you'd use one or the other, because although they're approaching it slightly differently from the way they do it from a tech perspective, it's doing the same thing. So you wouldn't use both of them. Was there any other questions, Will?
One more. Can you see that question on the StreamYard?
Yep. Under Site Accelerator, you tick to speed up image load times, but does that mean that the images are compressed? No. So speed up image load times means what it's doing is it's instead of loading it from your hosting, so your WordPress hosting, it's hosting it from, so it's serving it from the Jetpack CDN. So it's not compressing it like we've talked about with ShortPixel. It's just where that image is. So if the image in your hosting environment was 250 kilobytes, it's still going to be 250 kilobytes when it's served off the Jetpack CDN. So there's no compression going on there. It's just the fact that there's, the Jetpack CDN more likely can get those 250 kilobytes onto the visitor's browser faster than potentially your hosting company can. Yeah, so it's just, I can see why you get the terminology might make you think that, but it's not doing that.
Okay, great.
Alrighty, so let's keep going. So that's my demo for Jetpack. So you can learn more about that at jetpack.me, or as I showed you in here, just go into the plugins, click Add New, and search for Jetpack. So it's just Jetpack, and you can search for it there and install it. Alrighty, so let's move on. So the next thing to do, and this is, so I know we're focusing on images, but double click to edit there. It's very good, isn't it, Peter? I wanted to just talk about a little quickly session, just talking about optimizing some of the code around that. So certainly, things that we've talked about tonight, even if you did those two things, so did some image compression and enabled a CDN on your WordPress site, you would find that would make in some cases, a massive difference to the way and the speed that your site is being served. But there's another little plugin that I want to show to you, which is this one. And this one's called Auto Optimize. And this is something that we use all the time. It's like one of the first plugins we install when we're going live with a new website. And this is a little plugin that's just a utility that helps you to serve up your HTML, your JavaScript, and your CSS. So not image specific things, but helps you to serve those things up as quickly as possible. So let's have a quick demo of that. Oops, gone past that. So we'll go back to my sample installation here. So over to plugins, and I've already got it installed. I just need to activate it. So there it is there for the spelling. So once again, if you didn't have this installed, you just go Add New and you search for Auto Optimize, and then you activate it. So the thing I like about this is that you really can't go wrong. You don't really need to know too much about what's going on here. The settings out of the box, once you turn them on, pretty much do the magic. So there's 3 boxes here. There's one for JavaScript, so JavaScript options, CSS options, and HTML options. So it would be pretty safe for most websites to just simply turn these on and leave the rest of the things as default. So it's optimizing my JavaScript code, optimizing my CSS code, and optimizing my HTML code. Now, if I did that and push save changes and empty cache, it will go ahead and it'll do those things. So let me explain to you what's happening here. So when you have a WordPress installation, you install a couple of plugins. WordPress, by and large, is serving up HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so JavaScript is doing some interactive things. When you click on things, it might be loading another element somewhere else in the screen, or adding something to a card or something. CSS is all your style options. So they're, why things are particular colors and shapes and things like that. And of course, HTML is your text and the markup language that brings it all together. So when you click these things, it's doing a bunch of things. Firstly, it's minifying them all. So you can see it here. So it's giving you an option to minify all of these things. So basically what that's doing is it's taking out all the white space. So all of these languages, when you write them, you often leave lots of white space, and you might even put comments and things in them. What minifying does is basically it strips all that out. And so it's what we're trying to do here is to serve up as small a file size as we possibly can. So both in JavaScript, in CSS world, and HTML is going to minify all those files. The other thing it'll do is it'll aggregate all the linked JavaScript files together and serve it as one file. So again, if you go back to my drawing, which isn't specifically about this, what's incorrect about this is that I've got one line for CSS. So that might infer to you that there's only one CSS file that's being loaded from that server to the visitor's browser. But that's actually not the reality. Is that there might be a number of CSS files, there might be a number of JavaScript files. And so every time the person's web browser needs to open another connection, whether it be to the origin server or whether it's from a CDN server like this, it's expensive. It takes time and it takes resources. So what this plugin is doing is it's combining all of that into one JavaScript file, one CSS file, so that the web browser just has to open a connection once and it can basically suck in all of that stuff at once. So if I show you what's happening here, I'll just save that. So if I go across here now, I haven't reloaded this page. So this is before the optimizer has been put in place. So you look here and you can see here that I've got a style.css. I've got some other CSS files here as well, but most of my styles, for example, are coming out of style.css, right? But when I reload this page, so I'll grab it again off the server, now that I've got the plugin installed, we're going to see that we get one file for the CSS, which is the auto-optimized file. So if we had 5 or 6 CSS files that different plugins might have put together for us, basically what's happened is this plugin is concatenated all that into one great big file and is allowing the server to connect to that and grab that all at once. And so the same thing is happening for JavaScript. It's getting, JavaScript pretty more so. You might have 5 or 6 or 10 different JavaScript files that are being in use for plugins. So if you have if Google Analytics tracking plugin or something like that, they're all going to be adding another JavaScript file to what's being served out to your users. So pulling them all together. So without getting sort of too nerdy into the rest of what's going on here, pretty much enabling those and leaving the defaults is a pretty good option in most cases. There is one thing I'll draw your attention to. If you're using a page builder, there's an option right down the bottom here. It says, by default that auto-optimize is active for logged in users. So even you, when you're working on, if you're using like Elementor or Beaver Builder or something like that, as you're building the website, it's also doing this. And sometimes that causes trouble with page builders. So you can uncheck that box. And what that's going to do is that it's going to leave set up so that non-logged in users, so people who are not in the WordPress dashboard, so Joe Soap, who's coming to your website, he will get, or she will get the optimized version of it. But when you're logged into the back end of your WordPress site, and you might be, editing pages or building things in a page builder or whatever, it will just quietly leave the files as they were and not get in your way. So that's a good thing to uncheck, particularly if you're using a page builder. If you're not using a page builder, you could leave it checked and probably it's all going to work quite nicely for you. So that's auto-optimize. So I thought I'd generally like to show you people that because it's a great little plugin. We use it all the time. As I said, on every site we launch, we install that plugin, and it makes a significant difference to the speed. And if you're into things like looking at your site through Google page speed and things like that, then that's a good first step to getting everything running a little bit smoother. Okay, so let's just jump forward to where we were. If we want to have some questions, I think did you say that there was some from ShortPixel?
Yeah. Let's see if I can find them. Okay, so we've got one from J and A Barn about large file sizes.
So it's a can of worms, but I always kind of say to people between 100 to 150 kilobytes. If you can get things in that kind of window, then you're doing well. And you can still have a 1500 pixel wide by a 1000 pixel high image. So don't confuse the pixel size of an image with the file size. So that's my rule of thumb that I've worked with for ages, and I still say that to people. When I'm working with a client, they say, "How big should it be?" I'm like, "Well, as small as possible, but if you want a number, between 100 and 150 at the most." And it's not always possible. Sometimes you might have a very large image that's difficult to optimize because it's got, it might have a subject that's really bright and then a background that's a very dark kind of thing, and they won't compress as well. So, if you look through all the sites that I've built, you'll find images that are 200 kilobytes, and hang me, but that's my rule of thumb, is that I always say to people between 100 to 150 is a good place to try and aim for.
Well, a good segue into the next question Steph was asking was about ShortPixel. Does it also resize dimensions as well as the quality?
No. So the way that WordPress works is that you can potentially have different thumbnails. So you can define, even default WordPress without a theme will actually, you'll have your original image, and then it'll make so the default is that it'll make a 300 by 300 pixel image, and it'll make a thumbnail of 150 by 150. So WordPress does that, and so it does that so that in different situations, inside a theme, it can serve up a smaller dimensioned image. But ShortPixel doesn't get involved in that. The only place that it gets involved is that if your theme or default WordPress is making 2 or 3 different sizes, it will optimize all of those different sizes. So it won't just optimize the original large image. It will optimize 300 by 300 medium. Is it a good way of describing that? How do you describe that? So in the media tool here, so this is just out of the box WordPress. Every time you upload an image, it will make a large, a medium, and a thumbnail version of that. So ShortPixel will optimize these various different sizes, but it won't change the sizes. I think that answers the question. Yeah,
that's a good answer. Janie Barron was also asking about I think he's talking about the batch update as well. But when you update the whole library and the images in there, does it actually update the images that are linked to the post of the page, or just the images in the library?
Just the images in the library. So if you do this, so come into here, there's a couple of ways of doing it. You can selectively do it. So you could come along here and go, I want to upload, or you could choose this whole page. And there's an option here that goes optimize with ShortPixel. So you can choose to do just this, what I select here, or this tool that I showed you here, bulk ShortPixel, will go through the entire library. Okay, so it says here that I've got 18 images, and so there's smaller versions of that, so the 186 in total. And if I did that, start optimizing, it would optimize all of them. So generally, you can do it like that, and then what I would tend to do is to come back here and then spot check them. So you might come through here and go, well, let's have a look at this particular one and make sure that you're happy. And that's where you can, if you find something that it hasn't done a good job on, you can come down here and go, okay, restore the backup, because I want to keep image that I originally uploaded. Yeah, so it's doing it library based rather than page or post. One thing I didn't say though, which is relevant, once it's enabled, so if you come back tomorrow and you upload another 2 images to a new blog post or something, it will automatically optimize those ones as you upload them. So you do the bulk. So if you install it now, you do the bulk process to do everything that's happened before, and then as you go forward, it will optimize those images as you upload them.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've used it on a few client websites as well. It's pretty neat. Morris is going way off topic. Thanks, Morris. I know this is about images, but he's just wondering if you've got any advice or you've come across optimizing video, or is that a whole new session?
It's a whole new thing. Well, I actually don't know that much about it. To be like getting into different resolutions in your 1080p's and whatnot for video, I don't really know that much about it. I mean, we would tend to certainly, by and large, I would get a client to serve video off a streaming service, so off Vimeo or YouTube or something like that, and I generally rely on those services to do the optimization. So I know. So it's a little bit of information makes you dangerous, doesn't it? Or what's the expression? So I know with a service like YouTube and Vimeo, and I think Wistia, is it? How do you say that? Is it
Wistia?
Not Wisteria. Wisteria is the plant. Wistia.
Wistia.
Wistia. You can upload, so you can throw out a high frame rate, high resolution video. And it will, when it's serving that video out to a user, it will stream it depending on the kilobits per second that it's detecting. So it's like watching YouTube. So that happens every time you watch YouTube. If you just go to youtube.com, if you've got a great internet connection, you'll see the video looks brilliant because it's streaming you a higher frame rate video. And if you've got a poor connection, you'll find that it's it's pixelated and sluggish because YouTube is going, it's pretty slow. So I will stream out a lower frame rate to that person. So generally, I piggyback off people who know more about video. So I would get a client to use a streaming service like that. Even if you're going to embed it, it doesn't mean you don't have to click out to YouTube. Like I could have a video sitting here as the background of this page and have it streamed from YouTube or Vimeo or not the plant, but the other one. So you don't have to actually click out. It doesn't have to go to YouTube as such to do it. You can embed YouTube videos as backgrounds or as something that plays inside the page.
Yeah, totally. And Morris, if you're looking to kind of upload or optimize the video sizes, if that's maybe what you're more onto, then there's a great tool. I don't know if it works on the Mac, but it certainly works on PCs. It's called Handbrake. So if you search for Handbrake video converter, and if you come up with a pineapple, it's the one with the pineapple, then that does great. So when we do our WordCamp conferences, we get these gigabyte file sizes from the video technicians, and we've got to upload them into the WordPress.tv, and they don't allow anything over 1 gigabyte. So we can compress like a 4 or 5 gigabyte 1 hour stream down to maybe about 200 or 300 megabytes. So it's a great tool without loss of quality as well. So check out Handbrake if you want to optimize video size specifically before you're going to upload. A few extra, let's see if we can see some extra. There we go. Joey J is asking, have you come across any adverse effects from minifying codes, like some things stopping working?
Yes. Look, sometimes a more complicated website or a website that's got lots of crazy plugins sometimes you can have problems. Fancy Box comes and goes. Seems to be popular, and then people use different things. But yes, so short answer, yes. There is some settings in Auto Optimize to try and so there's an option here that says force JavaScript into the head, and sometimes that can fix some of those problems. But you can also, so you can see it's excluding a bunch of things. So it excludes some of the core WordPress things, and jQuery it'll exclude, so it doesn't fill it with jQuery. So if you've got a fancy box script that is causing a problem, you can find the path to it. So it might be under WP includes, or it might be WP content / a plugin, and you can put the file that's causing troubles into this. So basically what that will do is it will optimize everything else, but it will leave so if we're using fancy box as an example, it'll leave that script being loaded and served as it is. So you can try that.
Yeah, definitely. I've had issues before when you're minifying stuff, particularly for CSS, because it's very based on order, because it's cascading style sheets, and sometimes these plugins can take a CSS file and they'll squash it into a wrong location, which means that your some other CSS can override stuff. So if that does happen, then yeah, the best way to do that is, as Peter says, just try excluding that particular script. If you can find that using the inspect elements.
Or fix your CSS.
Or fix your CSS.
Or dare I say.
Or uninstall your hidden plugins.
Yeah, no, you can do the same thing. So if you find that something crazy is happening with your CSS and you can work out that it's a particular plugin or a particular file that's being that's causing a problem, you can do the same thing with CSS. You can get it to exclude it. But I've seen some problems too with you if you have things like that, and then you use the WordPress customizer has got the ability to put CSS into it. Sometimes that can give you some funny results, because I think it loads that last. Is that right?
Yeah.
When it
either loads it
optimizes
it, also embeds it as well. So
yeah, so if you've done some CSS quickly in the customizer, and then you turn on auto optimize, you can sometimes get some crazy things happening because of the order. Yeah.
Steve's asking about exporting images. So when you're exporting them out of Illustrator or Photoshop, do you export them at 144 or 72? I think it's talking about DPI.
Yeah. So I'll half answer this. So I still do stuff at 72. There is more and more now people are getting interested in Retina images. And there's a couple of ways of doing it. There's plugins for it, and there's different ways of approaching it. I don't know, maybe you can help me answer this as well as to what you do. But certainly if I've got a logo that wants to sit at the top left-hand corner of a page or something like that, what we would generally do is we would export it at twice the pixels that we want it to be, and we would export it at 72 DPI. So if we want it to be, I don't know what that is, that might be 100 pixels square or 100 pixels across or something, we would make an image 200 pixels across and export it at 72 DPI, and then using CSS, make the width half of what the image size is. And so you'd get an image that's nice and sharp. Moreover, we're probably using vector graphics these days, but certainly if it's a PNG file or something like that, or so you're getting it out of Illustrator and you bring it out as a PNG file, you could do that kind of thing. What do you do, Will? Do you have a take on responsive images and how to?
Yeah, I do exactly the same. So I use 72 DPI and then export it at double the size and then reduce it by 50% using CSS. Because you would think that if you export the same file in 72 DPI, if you export it then in 144, you'd expect it to be, well, maybe twice the size. But sometimes, if you're exporting it at that 144 DPI, the file size can be as much as 3 or 4 times. So if you've got like a 3 or 4 times size image just for Retina, then you're still loading that in normal websites. So I think it's always best to try the 72 DPI, do it 2 times larger, and the file size should work out smaller than the 144 res in most occasions. But I'm a big fan of doing SVG stuff as well if you want to really auto-scale, especially logos and text things.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris is backing me up on that. There you go.
Yes. Well, look, it changes. SVGs. I mean, you still got to install a plugin to get SVGs to work.
I know.
in
What's
WordPress.
that about? My goodness. SVGs and
yeah.
WebPs, they still don't support them. What's that about?
Yep. Can't tell you.
Steph says WordPress won't allow SVGs due to security exploits.
So the plugin, which one do you use? I can't remember the one that we use off the top of my head.
I can't remember either. In fact, I'm fairly sure it's my own function I've written.
Yeah. Yeah. So what it is there's a set of file extensions that are allowable, if you like, in the media library. And so what you have to do is there's a plugin, a couple of plugins, I'm sure there's more than one, or you can write a function that will basically add to that. So it'll add SVG as another allowable file inside the media library. But if you search for like WordPress SVG,
Yeah, there's a whole heap of plugins that allow you to add it to the media library.
it will be SVG support. I'd start there. We have a standard build, so I don't install these all the time.
Yeah, so
something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Something like that would do the job. So that what it's doing is, it might be doing other things, but by and large, it's adding the permissions to the media library so that you won't get that permission error when you try and upload an SVG file.
Yeah, it basically does two things. So it adds .svg into the media library, so it recognizes it, and then it adds the meta tags, so like HTML/ or image/ SVG, so that the browser recognizes the format. That's the two things. I don't know why WordPress doesn't do that automatically. It's a pretty simple thing to do, but yeah, Steph could be onto a little bit there if there's like known security flaws with SVGs, but I'm sure, yeah, I've never had any issues with SVGs and clients before.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're up at 1 hour 20 almost. So I think if there's no other questions, I think I'd like to thank Peter for brilliant presentation, fantastic options on how to speed up WordPress, especially with image focused. And if you're looking to speed up WordPress, that's just one factor, right, Peter? There's a whole 100 other different factors to speed up WordPress, but images are a really good place to start. Peter, how can people get in contact with you if they want to spam you and ask you more stuff?
You can find us. You can find me at the DMA. So that's our website, thedma.com.au. So we're based in Sydney. So there's a little contact button there. You can say hello there. I'm on Twitter at pshilling on Twitter. So you could also say hello there.
Cool. I think we'll wrap up for tonight. So thank you very much, Peter, for a fantastic presentation.
It's nice to be back.
It's nice to be back. It's nice to have you back. Let me just grab on with I've got a couple of extra slidey things here. So that was image optimization. Fantastic for that one. We've done some Q&A, which is great. Thank you for all your questions. There were some really, really good questions in there. And we don't mind questions that are a little bit off topic as well, because it gives us a little bit of ideas for things to come up. And I see that in the comments, there's been a few people asking for different types of topics like Cloudflare or static HTML. So yeah, those are good options, and we'll take that into consideration and have a look. Just a little shout out. We also do the Elementor meetups as well. So you can find that. I'll post the link down there. So meetup.com, Elementor-Sydney. And we've got our next meetup is on Thursday, which is May the 6th at 6 p.m. And that's Sydney time. And I am talking about personalizing Elementor forms using request parameters. That's a bit of a mouthful, but basically it allows you to autofill form fields in your Elementor and personalize them. So, it says, thanks, Bob, for giving me your email, and, what's your email? I'm going to spam you, stuff like that. So, if you want to join us there, join us for Elementor meetups. I don't have a topic for next month for the meetup here. So keep your eye on meetup.com. And I'll try and figure out what to do for next month. I'll have a look at your comments as well and see if we can do something for that next month. But there definitely will be one next month, but just not sure what topic. So thanks again. Thanks, Peter. Thanks to all you guys out there. Thanks for the
See you, Will.
questions. And see you guys next month. Thank you.